Hi guys, welcome back to my channel where today I'm going to be reviewing the Watercolor Trip to France painting book and looking into the similarities and differences between the other two painting books in this series. I'll also be testing it out by completing one of the watercolor paintings, so I hope you enjoy the video and find it useful. Now, the first most obvious difference with this watercolour painting book compared to both the Italy and Venice painting books is its size. The France watercolour book is slightly bigger, measuring 26 by 18 centimetres. It has a soft cover like the other two books and, as you can see, is spiral bound across the top. This book, along with the other two, is available from Etsy.com and will set you back £33.49, but I'll leave details and links in the description box if you want to go and check them out. I was kindly gifted this book to review, but this video is not sponsored, so any opinions I give and conclusions I draw will be 100% my own. Now, if you've seen any of my other painting book videos, you may recognise that this book is set up in much the same way as the Italy book. So on the front page is a list of abbreviations and terms with an area to the right where you can practice the different techniques mentioned, which I think is a really good idea and gives you something to refer back to if you need to, or if you're a beginner to watercolour. Turning over the page, and we get straight into the first of 16 step-by-step painting lessons, the poppy field, and it's this one that I'll be painting today. At the top here is the reference photo, and underneath is the artist painting, which does look pretty amazing. There is also one of these QR geocodes on each reference photo in case you want to check out exactly where the location is. Turning over the page again brings us to the step-by-step instructions to help us create our own watercolour masterpiece, and this set of instructions is in 3 main steps, each of which has 6 to 9 parts to it. This looks a bit more detailed than the instructions in the Italy book, and on first glance may seem a bit daunting, especially for a beginner, but maybe not. Now, as you can see, the instructions are printed on the flip side of the reference photo and artist painting, which might present a bit of a problem, but more on that in a jiffy. Under the steps for this watercolour painting on the next page, we have our 2 outline sketches printed on Fabriano watercolour paper, 200 grams. Like the Italy book, this gives us the opportunity to attempt the painting twice. All of the paintings except for one in this book have this option, but I thought I'd do a quick flip through so you can see what sort of fun painting projects you can create with the lessons in this book. I really like the variety of landscapes, seascapes and buildings in this book, and when we get to lesson 8, Lavender Field, you'll see that there is a chance on this one to do a bigger painting instead of the 2 smaller ones. One thing I was curious to see in this book was whether the paintings got progressively harder as you went through the book, but it is a bit hard to tell without having done them yet. On first glance though, there is a lot more detail in these paintings compared to the Italy book. I went back and read the small print inside the front cover, and the creator or designer, Vitaly Detz, does say that this second book is more complex and has even more details, but still states that it's suitable for both beginners and advanced painters alike. Right, I'm keen to get painting, but there was one thing I wanted to rearrange first. For lesson 1, the reference photo and lesson are on opposite sides of the same piece of paper, as I showed you earlier. This means you need to keep flipping the page over if you want to use the reference photo whilst following the steps. It's not a huge deal, but personally I really like to compare the artist's impression with the reference photo. By doing this, I can learn to see what the artist sees and more effectively practice with my own photos. So I decided to tear out the sketch page, place the instructions on my left and take a photo of the reference photo on my phone, and in that way I could see everything all at once. This is by no means essential and did pain me a bit, but needs must. Working like this also meant that I could separate the 2 sketches and tape one of them to my table to make painting easier. The other sketch I'll keep safe for next time. Now for the rest of the video, unlike previous painting book videos I've done on this channel, I'm not going to go through each and every one of the stages for each of the 3 steps, because firstly I primarily wanted to do a review on this France book and see how it compared to the Italy and Venice books, and secondly because that would take me quite a long time. I thought instead I'd show you my painting process for this first lesson and share with you my thoughts and opinions on what I like and what maybe isn't so good as I go through the painting, so then you can come to your own conclusions before perhaps considering buying one of these yourself. I will be putting each of the 3 steps up on the screen though. If you want to look into them in more detail, pause the video and check them out. Now with this painting book, as with the Italy one, I would suggest that preparation is the key to success. And by preparation I mean reading through all of the steps first and maybe even pre-mixing and swatching out your colours as well, like I'm doing here. This would certainly be beneficial to a beginner I think, but maybe less so to a more advanced painter who may be painting more intuitively and relying less on guidelines. In this painting, for example, step 1 used a lot of the wet in wet technique, where you add your paint mixes to wet paper. I pre-mixed and swatched out my colours first on scrap watercolour paper, as I was worried that if I had to do it all as I went along, my pre-wetted paper would have dried whilst I was mixing paint, and I'd lose the effect I was after. I also think it's a good idea with either book to keep checking back with a reference photo, either in the book or any other way, as having it there can really help to train your eye and help you see how the artists interpret the photo. It is a shame it can't be on the same page as the instructions as in the Italy book, but I did find a way around it. So far as supplies goes, as with the Italy book, this France book comes ready to go, with professional quality paints as well as a round squirrel paintbrush. I think these kits are a great idea, especially for anyone who is new to watercolour and wants to experiment with the medium before splashing out on a lot of expensive supplies. But that said, there's nothing to prevent you using your own supplies too if you want to. I tended to choose my own 1/2-inch flat brush, for example, for washes and so on, which I found more efficient than the smaller round brushes that came in the kits. One criticism I do have about the France book in particular is that it doesn't appear to come with masking fluid or paraffin wax like the Italy kit. This is a bit of a shame, as I needed to use it in this first lesson of the book, so you'd be a bit stumped if you didn't have any of your own. There is also an instruction to use a bristle brush later on in step 3 of this lesson, which also isn't mentioned or supplied, and there's no mention anywhere of this being needed. I mean, you could use a toothbrush instead, so it's not a huge deal, but it might throw a beginner who thinks they've got to rush out and buy one. Maybe I'm being too picky, but I just thought I'd mention it. Okay, so we've looked at presentation and supplies, but what about instructions? Well, if you've seen my recent review of the Venice sketchbook, you'll know that it's very different. In that book there are no written step-by-step instructions, although you do still get an outline sketch and the paint is very cleverly dried onto the paper. The method for painting and what colours you choose though is pretty much up to you. It's very cool and I loved it. In the Italy book and this France book though, you do get the step-by-step instructions as you've seen. In my opinion, for this lesson at least, the instructions have been pretty clear and easy enough to follow so far, despite initially looking a bit daunting. But it's not always been too easy to understand what is meant by the artist, and I've mentioned this previously when painting Italy. Once you've tuned into the style of the painting books though, and you've worked through a few, you do tend to pick up a better understanding, but again I thought it was worth a mention. Something I do really like about these painting books in general is that a lot of the hard work has been done for you, whether you're painting Italy, France or Venice, and all you have to do is soak up the lesson. You haven't got to think of what to paint, you haven't got to draw out your sketch, and unless you're painting Venice, you haven't even got to figure out a method. What you can do though is learn from a master watercolourist and get his support and feedback through his Facebook and Instagram pages. You can also learn a lot about mixing paint colours and try out a variety of different techniques. The mission of Inspiria, as is written at the front of this book, is to inspire creative thinking, show the simplicity of the art process, motivate people and bring art into their lives and make them feel better, whether they are a beginner or a more practiced painter. And I really like that, but that's a whole range of abilities. One question I was interested to answer was, can these books really be suitable for any skill level, or is there a recommended order to do them in? The pictures and paintings are more complex in the France book, although still contain more guidance than the Venice book. if I had to rank them in order of difficulty, I would say that a beginner would be best off starting with the Italy book. Then the France book I would put at intermediate level, and I'd say Venice would be perhaps more advanced. But it all depends on how much or how little help you want, and how confident you are as well as where you think your current skill level is at. For me personally, I'm glad I started off with the Italy book. The steps are shorter, the picture's smaller, and it gives you a chance to get used to the method and techniques needed to start you off on your watercolour journey. The Italy book is more expensive at around £53, but then you do get more supplies, and I do think whichever book you choose, you are getting good value for money. You have all the step-by-step instructions, the lessons, and the support from professional artists, and these books do have excellent reviews on Etsy. And I know we've talked about the size of the books, but the fact that they are quite small not only means they're easy to travel with and pack in your bag, but it also means that the paintings themselves don't take that long to do, so it's easy to try and find time to fit in a painting throughout your busy week. But if you were thinking of getting one of these books, ultimately the choice as to which one you get is yours. I did think that the France book would be more challenging than it actually turned out to be, and I did really enjoy the painting process today. And in fact, until I started with these painting books, I've never really been inspired to draw landscapes much before at all, but it's always good to try something new, as you never know what you'll enjoy and learn along the way. I'd love to know in the comments if you've ever tried something you didn't think you'd like and actually ended up liking it. Maybe a new medium or a new technique, or even a different subject matter like this. It would be great to know, so just drop those comments in the box below. I'd also love to know if you've got one of these painting books, which one you've got and how you're getting on with it, perhaps in terms of following the instructions and the level of difficulty. I have spoken to a few of you about these books in the comments to past videos, and I really love hearing how you're getting on. Now we're almost at the end of the painting, and I just wanted to quickly say one thing that I'd forgotten to mention about this book earlier. So earlier I talked about using a bristle brush. Well, it's at this stage that the instructions also say to use this with a method of spattering colours. Now you could probably guess what this means, but if you don't know, there's no explanation. There is also a note at the front of the book that says in some of the paintings you are on your own, where you make decisions independently. This on your own instruction didn't feature in this painting, but it does make me wonder how a beginner might feel without more guidance. And so far as splattering is concerned, there was no caution to cover up areas of the painting you didn't want splattered. But maybe that's just common sense, and I suppose you've got 2 chances at this painting, so you'd only make the mistake once. On the whole, I really enjoyed painting the poppy field from this book, and I think it turned out okay. I'm looking forward to trying some more paintings, and it'll be interesting to see if they do get progressively more complex as we go through the book. I've only done one of the 2 paintings today, so I'm going to date it on the back so that I can see if or how I've progressed by the next attempt. I think it turned out alright, but let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know too which painting book, if any, I should paint from next week, or maybe you've even got a different idea for another video, so let me know that too. I hope you've enjoyed this video and found this review and comparison helpful in some way, but if there's anything that I've missed out or any questions I've left unanswered, please pop them in the comments box below and I will get back to you. Also, if you'd like to check out any of the other videos, either on the Italy painting book or the Venice sketchbook review, then please check out the links above. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!